Excellent. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. My name is Syvertsen, and right now I am doing something that I avoided for the first 35 years of my life. And that thing is standing up in front of all of you looking back at me the center of attention, and me experiencing fear, right? So this is what I avoided for the first 35 years of my life. And many of you probably understand my fear. It's that fear of red embarrassment, of sweating uncontrollably, of judgment from the crowd. So uncomfortable, feeling I just want anything but to be out of there right now. So that's what brought me into Toastmasters several years ago. But I'm a psychologist, right? I'm a psychologist, and my job is to help people overcome their fears, overcome the things that they avoid. So I decided in, I think it was December of 2010, to attend my first Toastmasters meeting. It had been long enough that I'm telling my clients, oh, you're afraid of this thing, you have a phobia of spiders, we need to do exposure therapy, right? So it was time for my own exposure therapy, and I came in here, and tonight, I'd like to motivate you guys to find something that you're afraid of, to get out there and expose yourself to it. So Jeff, I'm sorry to say my speech tonight is not about exposure to the ocean and a fun trip. It's about exposing yourself to fears and things that make you uncomfortable. So back in December 2010, I sent some emails back and forth to Toastmasters, and I decided to come in here for my first meeting. And then about a year later, I gave my first speech in 2011, in August. And I started my journey of Toastmasters. And I think that my journey of Toastmasters is kind of a metaphor for life, in that whenever you change, whenever you evolve, whenever you grow, you go through these kind of stages. And there are also the stages of treatment for exposure therapy with my client. And so I wanted to walk you guys through those stages of treatment tonight. So stage number one, you have something that you're afraid of and you want to change, right? This is anything you want to change in life. Step number one is set goals. So I remember the first time I was sitting probably way in the back over there, a visitor in the first meeting, and they came around at the end. It's visitor's time. Of course, I didn't go up for table topics or anything like that. And they handed me the microphone and they said, "How did you find out about Toastmasters and what would you like to get out of this?" And I said at that meeting, I said, "Well, I found out about it on the internet, and what I'd like to get out of it is that I'd like to expose myself to the thing I'm afraid of, and I'd like to someday be a better public speaker." Right? And so here I am at speech 10, but that was the goal I set for myself. In this first speech I gave, in my icebreaker speech, I set the goal that I wanted to achieve my competent communicator, and that I wanted to become more comfortable public speaking and be able to come up and do some things. But to be totally honest, there was another goal in mind here, right? It was a goal that Jeff brought up, which was that I found out in the fall of 2010 that my brother was getting married. And he was getting married in May of 2012. And he has one brother, and it's me. And I knew I was going to be the best man. And this was going to be a New York fancy black tie, 200-plus person wedding, full of doctors and lawyers and everyone who would make me feel uncomfortable. And so I used to wake up at night with a knot in my stomach, feeling sick. And that's really what drove me in here. So that was, a lot of people hit a point where that's the scales tip and they want to make a change. And so for me, that was that point. So I set my goals, and then I set about with the hardest part of change, which is get up there and do it. So this is where you're afraid of something, you actually have to do it. I'm afraid of driving on the highway. Someday you're going to have to get in the car and drive on the highway, right? It just is going to happen, right? And it's the hardest part. But this is part of the treatment for exposure, or for exposure therapy, for fear. And it's part of change in life in general. You have to face those things that you fear. And it's hard, but once you get over that hurdle, things get easier. And that's what's important. But that's not all that's important. If you take somebody who's afraid of snakes, for example, and you throw them into a pit of vipers, and they get bit like 20 times, and they're terrified, and they have to get pulled out, rushed to the hospital, that experience is most likely not going to reduce their fear of snakes. As a matter of fact, it might increase it, right? And maybe there's one crazy person like, wow, that wasn't actually as bad as I thought. Really? What were you thinking? But for most people, what changes it is actually understanding that this thing that you were afraid of is not as scary as you thought, that you can actually succeed at this thing, that it's not going to hurt you as bad as you might have thought. So it's important to experience success. And here at Toastmasters, like I said in the beginning, I think some of you can understand where I'm coming from in my fear of public speaking. Maybe that's what brought some of you in here today. But Toastmasters provides you with the opportunity to get that positive feedback, to get that. Sure, you get some criticism as well, like I don't have enough body language, I'm not using enough vocal variety, I need to like wave my hands more, right? I've learned that over the 10 speeches. I need to walk around the stage a little more. But you also get that positive feedback, like, no, you looked good up there, and even though you're sweating, it wasn't quite as noticeable as you think, and you know, it was actually, you seemed much better up there than you think, and you start to make that change. So, but that's not the end. So now you've gotten up there, you've built some confidence, then people will quit. The real way that you change a fear, a long-term fear that you've been avoiding for a long time, is to stick with it, right? You have to practice over and over again. So I've seen many people in my 3 years of Toastmasters, 2.5 years of Toastmasters, come in here, they give their icebreaker speech, they're a little bit shaky, and then they never come back. It's like, I got through that hurdle, you know, I'm done. I guarantee you you're not done, right? I guarantee you that you're going to be anxious the next time you get out there. This is not the cure-all, right? You have to persevere. You have to push your way through. And after a while, you start to feel a little more comfortable and confident. And then there's a final stage. And in the world of medicine, they say that in the learning process, you watch, you do, and you teach. So first you like watch a procedure, then you do it, and then you teach it. So at some point in my process here, I realized, you know what, I'm gaining a lot from Toastmasters, and I'm changing. And I gave that speech at my brother's wedding, and I felt really good about it. So I said, you know what, I want to give back. So I guess I got roped into, but let's say I volunteered to be Vice President of Education. And that way I can help other people in Toastmasters to reach their goal and to move forward. So these are the steps that I went through as part of my journey, and you guys will probably go through as part of your journey, whatever it might be. Maybe it involves Toastmasters, and maybe it doesn't. But you might ask, what happened at that speech at your brother's wedding, right? Did you collapse? Did you crumble under the pressure? Well, no, the reason why this is a PowerPoint presentation, because you didn't really need to see all those things on there, was because I wanted to show this picture right here, right? So then here's me at this wedding, giving the speech, and when I look at that, I don't see somebody sweaty and red-faced and embarrassed. I see somebody who's making a joke. I think there's even like a slight smile on my face there. Maybe even confidence. I might go as far as to say that. It's hard to say, right? But this was my motivation. This is what helped me get through, and this is what I feel proud of. So what I want to leave you guys with tonight is to choose something in your life that you're afraid of, some fear that you've been avoiding. And we all have something we've been avoiding, whether it's visiting your mother-in-law or whatever. We've been avoiding it, right? This is an opportunity to take stock of that, to set some goals, to push yourself to get out there and do it, to feel the confidence of building up the successes in that area, sticking with it, and then maybe even helping some other people at the end. So I'd like all of you to push yourself to achieve your goals and to challenge yourself, which I think was actually our theme for the year. So thank you very much. Mr. Toastmasters.